My name's Nadia. My pronouns are they and them. It was a long time for me to consider that my gender identity was on a spectrum, even though I knew that gender was on a spectrum from a young age. Considering that that might have affected me took me a long time to process. So I grew up in southwest Sydney. I've lived there pretty much my whole life. Growing up in southwestern Sydney suburbs is like kind of terrible. It's full of white people and full of like people who kind of have like very closed-minded views of the world and society. So I kind of branched out. I started sort of getting into like the younger Sydney queer scene. That's kind of where I like had to educate myself about gender and sexuality and identity, intersectional feminism. I do a lot of film photography on the side. I also dance at an aerial school. It's a really inclusive space. I do pole and lyra, which are two aerial forms of dance. I don't really fit into the binary as much as I thought I originally would, or I guess would have liked to, even though that's a bit kind of fucked up. My dad is Indian and my mum is Dutch and Portuguese, but she grew up in Sri Lanka. My dad kind of has that very like traditional way of thinking. He doesn't know that I'm queer. He doesn't know about my gender expression. My mum is sort of the same. My dad has always sort of said very high-key homophobic things. I kind of just go with kind of how I'm feeling. I'll be notoriously late to something if I'm like stressing about like what to wear, because I feel like that generally has a lot of impact on like how people view me or how I view myself. I can speak for the Berlin drag scene, which I was in when I lived in Germany. The Berlin drag scene is probably like the most inclusive drag scene I've ever been to. I felt so comfortable there. It was a really amazing experience. I wish that I could go back. Who is someone famous you look up to and why? Sid from the internet. She has always just been like so open about her sexuality and her attitude, and I've always just looked up to like the openness and the androgyny that she's like always put out into the music scene. Also, she's like a person of color, so I think it's more about making yourself feel at home in other spaces, finding a really good support network with friends. Growing up, I sort of learned that it's not a crime to value your friends more than your family sometimes. Blood is definitely not thicker than water. Sit down and reflect on who you are and who you want to be, and not who other people expect you to be. Yeah. Do you realize how beautiful and important you are? This is so awkward. The last year that I was able to like live overseas was really good for finding like a sense of identity in whatever way that sort of means for someone with BPD. Identity is in general like a very up and down thing for me. Life is just like what you make it.